Powered by WCTV.tv. Your news starts now.
All right, happening right now, Hurricane Michael is moving in on the North Florida coast.
There is a press conference underway at the State Emergency Operations Center right now. The governor will provide an update on Hurricane Michael. You can see it about to begin. This is a live look at the Emergency Operations Center here in Tallahassee.
But before we go to that, we'll wait for the governor to take the podium. Let's go to Rob Nucatello for the very latest on this very powerful storm. Rob, what's going on right now?
Got plenty to get to with Hurricane Michael. Got a special statement at 11:30 from the National Hurricane Center, raising the winds to 150 miles per hour. If you're wondering where Category 5 starts, up over 157 miles per hour. Awfully close. And that internal pressure down to 923 millibars. That is incredibly low. What does that mean? It means this is a very, very strong storm, and it's going to cause a lot of damage, especially to those coastal counties from Gulf and Bay and even parts of Franklin County. And I think some of those inland counties are going to get some of that as well. Now, it is still expected to stay well west of most of the Big Bend area and weaken considerably as it goes over land. But at this point, I still think our thinking is the same. Rainfall rates of a couple of inches per hour could accumulate as much as 4 to 8 inches across the board, more in western sections. I would not be surprised to see some areas get up over 10 inches worth of rain. The farther east you go, farther removed from the center of the storm, much less rain. The wind predictions, we still have the same thinking with that too. Most of our area, we're talking 40 to 65 or maybe 70 miles per hour tops for sustained winds. And remember, a sustained wind is a 30 to 60 second average, whereas a wind gust is a 2 or 3 second burst. Now, we could see some wind gusts up over 75 or 80 miles per hour, but I think most of our area is not looking for winds like that. Tornadoes are still possible, of course. We've got the tornado watch in existence until 5 o'clock. I still think at this point the biggest and most long-lasting effects from Hurricane Michael will be some storm surge flooding. We're talking 8 to 12-foot surge heights over normal high tide. High tide is set to happen this afternoon, which should coincide with a lot of the strongest winds and rain from this system. And that is not just for areas closest to the core, but for all around the Gulf Coast region, the Big Bend too. So we expect some really dangerous storm surge. Already seen some pictures and reports of water up across roads and bridges, and that is going to continue for several more hours. Here are the watches and warnings. This purple shading, by the way, is that special wind warning that's in effect until 2:15. And then we have the tornado warning, or tornado watch, in effect till 5 p.m. All right, what's going on with Michael right now? It's moving a little bit more east, northeast, as opposed to that north direction that it was going for most of the morning. And it's really close to land right now. This is the eye, and you can certainly see it there with a little bit more of the thunder and lightning developing on that northern side. So it's still holding together fairly strong. Part of the reason why we're getting those incredible wind readings from the Hurricane Hunter aircraft. Across the middle, it's only about 18 miles wide. The fact that it is so small and so tightly wrapped could be part of the reason it's able to get so strong, but something that's important to note, and I can't stress it enough, those strongest winds are in that 20-mile radius right around the inside. They don't extend way out 100 miles. As a matter of fact, the hurricane force winds, the ones up over 74 miles per hour, they only extend out 50 miles. So once you get past 50 miles, the winds drop off significantly, and that will continue. Now, the center of the storm, it's only about 15 or 20 miles from land, so we expect landfall probably within the next 90 minutes at its current course, and that's going to be someplace near Mexico Beach. So I know all of the comparisons to Hurricane Kate from 1985 are going to come out. And yeah, there are some similarities, but there are plenty of differences with this one and this day and age compared to back in the 1980s. Now, as far as the storm itself looks, this has really been the most impressive visual so far overnight and all morning, the tropical satellite imagery. Now, we're not seeing as many blacks and grays north and west. We still see some on the southern edge, but as it gets closer to land, it's got to weaken. Those cloud tops have to warm because it starts to get removed from its fuel source, those warm Gulf waters. There is plenty of activity extending far to the north, and that's why much of our area is going to continue to feel these effects for the next several hours. Here I've got it zoomed all the way in. The center is moving onto your screen over here to the bottom left, and you can see where Mexico Beach is, where Panama City is, and of course, all of these bay areas are certainly going to have flooding issues over here. The coastal sections, especially for these counties, Gulf and Bay, that's what's going to take the full bore of this storm. But inland, up near Weewahitchka, maybe up to Blountstown, we'll still be having a very powerful hurricane moving in this direction, and that is going to cause issues in those areas as well with the stronger winds and the stronger rains. Now, there's been some drier air throughout the day. We've been watching just kind of nuzzle up to it and really almost cut off some of the bottom of the storm. Been trying to get pulled in there to help weaken the system, but it's been unable to do so. And this next trough that's starting to move across the lower 48 is doing its part to slowly start that turn to the northeast, which should help to accelerate the storm throughout the afternoon, evening, and tonight. I think tomorrow is a totally different day. We'll look at the winds across the board. The Tallahassee Airport is registering 30-mile-per-hour sustained winds, now 31. At Apalachicola, 54. So yeah, the wind is picking up. Of course it is. The storm is getting closer. But look at Dothan, look at Albany, look at Valdosta, where the winds are still in the teens. So it's not everybody going to see 150-mile-per-hour sustained winds. I understand where our imagination goes when we see that icon on the screen and we hear that. But we need to take a step back and look at it rationally. Now, some of the wind gusts, by the way, they are going to get up over hurricane strength. Of course they are. Those wind gusts are those 2 or 3 second bursts, and they can absolutely get to those kind of strengths and speeds. Now, what are we expecting throughout the afternoon? Well, closer to the core, I do think we're going to find those winds maybe up over 60 miles per hour. And it only need a 20 or 30 mile per hour sustained wind for an hour or two to really cause some damage. So damage is going to be something we're going to have to put up with, especially as we get through this and into later this afternoon and tonight. Tree limbs, power lines, all those things are going to have some problems withstanding this kind of battering of wind. Plus, what we're going to have is going to be the consistent on some of other structures that may be having some problems that if they weren't ready for it or unable to handle that kind of wind. Now, once we get past 7, 8 o'clock tonight, everything starts to calm down. The winds start to turn a little bit more in our area, and our northern and eastern sections start dealing with whatever's left of the stronger winds and rain, while our southwestern sections start to wave goodbye to those stronger winds and rains. And then as we get into the daytime on Thursday, we start bringing in that new air mass with much, much nicer weather coming our way. Here's what the tropical radar shows, and you can still see that very clear center in that circulation working its way, marching right towards the coast of Gulf and Bay counties. So that's where it's headed. I expect landfall probably within the next 60 to 90 minutes. What kind of rains are we looking at around here? You've definitely heard it in some spots. I see plenty on the radar. If we zoom in, we can see maybe one little stripe of more significant rains for parts of central Leon County through much of Gadsden County. We've got another one from near Wassissa down to Perry. I haven't seen any reports of any rotation in any of these cells just yet, but that is certainly a possibility, and we'll be checking for that through the afternoon. We widen out a little bit farther. Remember, Panama City is only 100, 150 miles from Tallahassee, but that 100, 150 miles is a very long stretch, and that makes a huge difference in what kind of winds we see. If the storm itself were 50 or 60 miles more east when it made landfall, it would have been a very different picture for more of central parts of our viewing area. But it's not. It's on the other side of Apalachicola, finally getting across that 86-degree west longitude line. And as it works its way towards land, we need to expect it to weaken considerably when it gets there. Coastal areas of Taylor County, of Dixie County, we still expect storm surge here too. Maybe not as high as they'll find in other areas farther west, but there's no question we could see storm surge 6 to 10 feet even in these areas, and storm surge is definitely going to be one of the bigger things to put up with, as will be some of the rain that could still spawn some tornadoes. Lots to watch for the next several hours, especially when we start talking about winds at 150 miles per hour, and that's what the Hurricane Hunter aircraft found at 11:30 this morning. All right, that's what we've got for now, guys. I'll be back with much more to go through as we move through the afternoon. We'll continue to update the map so we can show you what's going on and update those radar views. And thank you to everyone for letting us know how the power is going where you are. We'd love to have that information to share with everybody. Now let's send it over to the news desk.
All right, thanks for that update, Rob. We will check back in with you in just a second. As we know, several high schools and schools in Leon County serving as shelters. Godby is one of those shelters right now. People there seeking shelter, getting away from the storm.
That's right. A lot of shelters set up. Child's High is one of those pet-friendly ones. Florida High taking people with special needs medically. Our Lenitra Bennett is actually at Godby, and she has an update for us now.
I just arrived at the shelter here at Godby High School, located on the corner of Ocala and Tharp Street in Tallahassee. I've seen some people here. I haven't gone inside just yet, but even just walking through the campus of the school, there are several people who are taking advantage of this shelter. I do see some people inside. I see a few folks. I've met a couple of people who say they evacuated from Apalachicola, the Franklin County area, I'm told. Not looking good right now, so they are very grateful to have somewhere to go here in Tallahassee. We'll be surveying the area and checking things out, and we'll let you know how things are a little later. For now, back to you.
Well, take a little shot of the Panama City Beach area. It looked emptier than usual, of course, as powerful Hurricane Michael closed in on the Florida coastline. It looks like Panama City Beach, as Rob was saying a little bit earlier, really just in the crosshairs of that thing, and just kind of pose some serious issues for those areas built right up to the shoreline, like Pier Park and some of those spots like that.
Yeah, that area is under a mandatory evacuation. A lot of people have already left the area. Some decided to stay, as we know, and hunker down and stay in their homes, but millions of people affected by this hurricane, and it is intensifying. It is now, as Rob was saying, a Category 4. That is very, very serious. And here in Tallahassee, people are also preparing for the storm as well.
That's for sure. And we have this rain coming down. This is some video from a little while ago. You can see the wind is definitely picking up out there in Tallahassee. All those trees just blowing around, and some of the rain coming heavily at periods. Huh?
Yeah, and that rain has actually already caused some power outages here in Tallahassee. Earlier this morning at about 10:30, 11 o'clock at last check, the city was reporting about 2,000 people here in Tallahassee were without power. And that number expected, of course, to go up as the storm nears landfall and as we see more rain and issues with the weather, which could cause down trees, as we know.
All right, and of course, we'll keep you up to date on some of those power outages. As Vinny said a little while ago, City of Tallahassee had about 1,900, but that thing kind of fluctuates as we go. So we'll keep you up to date on those as we move along.
We'll be right back. Well, we are continuing our coverage of Hurricane Michael. Of course, that storm expected to bring some very powerful winds to our area.
That's right, Rob. Of course, all we're hearing is, hey, 148, 135 miles per hour. But that's not for the Tallahassee area directly, right? So what can we expect here and then maybe in the eye of the storm?
Yeah, let's get to it and let's see what's going on out there. We'll start with where the rains are some of the heaviest right now. And we can see some of those spiral bands that are certainly bringing some real impressive rainfall rates to spots right now. But there are also some significant breaks. And that's one of the things that happens with a tropical system like this is you line up those concentric rings and you get that band of rain and then a little lull, and then another band of rain, then another little lull. Around the center of the storm is where we're going to find the strongest winds and the heaviest rains. And that's where we're going to find those really high winds. Right now, and that is a pretty thin line to the north and west of the center, but around this center that's only about 20 miles across is where we're experiencing those strongest winds. Now, the system itself is only a little bit from land, so once it gets over land, it will start to weaken and weaken quickly. The first band that a lot of our areas saw earlier this morning is finally making progress up through Quitman, near Moultrie, almost to Doe Run, back towards Camilla. This is where we're seeing some moderate rains right now. If we slide back a little bit farther to the south, we can see from Bainbridge to Monticello through Thomasville and in Tallahassee, we've got some more significant rains, and that line stretches all the way down the coast for Keaton Beach down to Cedar Key. And I still think areas along the Taylor and Dixie County coast can find the same kind of surge that we'll see in Wakulla County and that we could see even in parts of northern Franklin County, and that's way higher than we want it to be. At this point, surge is going to be one of our biggest concerns with this entire tropical system, as will those winds on the other side of Apalachicola, closest to the core, that are still near 150 miles per hour. Now, these winds and this core should be over land within the next hour or hour and 15 minutes, as it continues to move off to the north and east at about 14 or 15 miles per hour. So that landfall someplace near Mexico Beach again is what we're watching, and once it gets over land, it should continue to weaken. And when it does, those winds will drop dramatically. Now, most of the really high winds are hundreds of feet up in the air, not at the surface. So that's also something to keep in mind. And I keep stressing this point. Those hurricane force winds only extend out from the center about 50 miles. So once you get past 50 miles, the winds are much, much, much weaker. Tropical storm force winds extend out from the center almost 175 miles. So yeah, we could find winds up over 40 miles per hour, 150 miles from the center of the storm, but we're not expecting to find winds at 100 miles per hour or even 75 miles per hour once you get that far away from the core of the storm. Now, the core itself is going to move north and east. As that happens, the core will get closer to other areas. So that means parts of western Wakulla County, parts of Gadsden County. We can find some of those stronger winds as we go through the next several hours. And this is going to be a wind machine as we go through our afternoon. And that is where some of the destruction comes from. But the strongest winds are going to be up against the coastlines of Gulf and Bay counties. And then as they move inland, it should weaken. The quicker it weakens, of course, the better. And all the while, we're going to be experiencing lots of rain and still on the lookout for the potential for tornadoes. As you have a landfalling tropical system, there is always the threat of some sort of spin-up rotation and tornadoes. So we've got lots to watch throughout the afternoon. The primary thing we're watching for right now is this storm getting to land and starting to weaken, and that should happen in the next 45 to 90 minutes. And that is the first step in seeing this storm at least begin to weaken, since it hasn't been able to do that all morning. It has been an incredible study in tropical weather. I'll have lots more to break down throughout the remainder of the hour and beyond through the afternoon. Don't forget to find us on Twitter and Facebook. Plenty of information there for you too, and we'll continue to update that as we go through the afternoon in real time also. All right, let's send it back to the news desk. They got more over there for you.
All right, thank you so much, Rob. Appreciate that. Well, we talked about the shelters in the Tallahassee-Leon County area. There are a number of those set up in South Georgia as well.
Yeah, people there in South Georgia are also bracing for the impact of the storm. Our Emma Wheeler is on the phone right now. Emma, you are at a shelter in Cairo, Georgia. So tell us, what's it like where you are right now?
Yeah, Venice, I'm at the Family Worship Center in Cairo. There's about 80 people right now. They told me most of those people were coming in this morning, trying to stay out that one last night at home. They are expecting even more people to come in, but a lot of people have energy. You know, they're feeling safe. They're feeling good about being here. And a lot of people are just saying, you know, as we've heard from so many people, they just don't want to take that risk. So they're making food here. They've got soup in the kitchen, preparing to feed about 100 people. So.
All right, Emma. Well, question for you. As far as the people that are coming in, some of those folks might be special needs and that kind of thing as well. How are they equipped to handle situations that may be a little out of the ordinary?
Well, you know, this is manned by the church here. They say they do this for every hurricane. As soon as I walked in the door, they said, what do we need? What do you need? How can we help? So this is something they've been through before. They're ready for, you know, whatever kind of goes their way.
Mm-hmm. And Emma, we've talked a lot about the conditions here in Florida for us. As you were heading to that shelter, what did you see there in South Georgia in that Cairo area? Did you see any weather impacts just yet?
Not just yet. So I was coming from Valdosta, and that was about 10 o'clock this morning, 9:30. You hit some waves of high wind, high rain, but it's been kind of off and on. We haven't seen any trees down yet. The winds haven't been too crazy, but I'm expecting it to kind of get worse as the day goes on. So.
All right, well, thank you so much. Emma Wheeler reporting live there via phone from Cairo, Georgia, at one of the shelters in South Georgia. A few other shelters are open as well in Valdosta, Park Avenue United Methodist Church, also the First Baptist Church, that's right downtown in Thomasville.
And also in Leon County, many shelters open in Leon County as well. The schools are serving as shelters for folks. We have Florida High, which is acting as a special needs shelter here in Leon County. Also Godby and Childs, which is a pet-friendly shelter. And here's a full list, a map of them, where you can see some of the shelters all across the county, really. Lincoln High, Florida High, Sale High, also the Braden School, all serving as shelters for people in need.
All right, very good. A lot of that information there on the screen for you, so get out there and stay safe, folks. Well, we have some information also on some shelters in other areas. Taylor County, the elementary school in Taylor County is open as a shelter. Jefferson Somerset School, that's in Jefferson County, is open too.
Gadsden County High School, West Gadsden Middle School, as well as the Havana Magnet School, all of those are open as shelters for folks who need to evacuate and stay safe ahead of the storm.
All right, and as we mentioned, Lowndes County Park Avenue United Methodist Church, it will be open all the way until Thursday.
And of course, we have all of those updates on our weather app. You can download the WCTV Pinpoint Weather app, and we will be letting you know where the storm is going to hit, how intense it's going to be. So everything that you need to know to keep you and your family safe, just download the WCTV Pinpoint Weather app.
All right, well, we now want to go to the EOC in Tallahassee. This is the State Emergency Operations Center for some information that's being given out right now.
Yeah, there are some updates right now of the storm. We're going to listen in for a couple of minutes.
Said for the last little bit to get ready for this storm. Hotels are out of vacancies. So if you're hoping to hit a hotel near your home, there are no vacancies there. So again, attempt to stay, not even attempt, please stay in your homes. Again, hurricane force winds are coming our way soon, but not just that. Tornadoes will be there as well. And I want to reiterate just how serious this is. It's the worst storm we've seen since 1851. We ask that you do not take it lightly, because we're not taking it lightly here. Stay tuned to WFSU and our local media, as they are right here at the EOC, and they will be here the whole time to make sure that you have up-to-date information about what's going on with the storm, where it is, and what to do next. We are prepared, as I said before, and we hope that you are prepared as well. Right now, at this point, where we're sitting right now facing this Category 4 storm with 150 mile per hour winds, we ask that you seek shelter in your own homes, and that if you do, pray to the God that you pray to, that this will be okay and that we'll get through this. But one thing I know for sure is that with that prayer with God and a sense of togetherness, that we will all make it through. Once this thing is over, once we get through it, check on your neighbors, make sure that everything is safe in your house. But most of all, now is not the time to leave your homes. I'd like to turn it over now to the mayor. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chairman Maddox, and good afternoon. I want to acknowledge the presence of the county administrator, the city manager, our EMS, as well as our fire and City of Tallahassee police chief. My colleagues, Commissioner Curtis Richardson and Commissioner Scott Maddox, are here, and you'll hear from our sheriff, obviously, in a moment here. At this time, citizens, as we have already said, should seek shelter where they are. We are expecting significant damage to our community, given the force of wind that we are expecting. You've heard the chairman repeat that we've not seen a storm of this size in over a century in this community. To put it in perspective, we're expecting this storm to make landfall at 150 miles per hour as a Category 4. A Category 5 would be 157 miles per hour. We're talking about a very, very strong storm. Again, the likes that we have not seen in over a century in this area. Our Tallahassee Fire Department is prepared to perform rescue and extractions when the conditions permit. And what that means is once the wind gets above 35 miles per hour, it is not safe to run many of our emergency response vehicles. Our emergency responders always want to be able to respond when called upon, but we're also not going to risk precious life unnecessarily. The Tallahassee region can expect tropical storm conditions from now until the latter part of the afternoon. We expect much stronger winds to begin to enter our area around 4 p.m., increasing to peak winds of 85 to 95 miles per hour between the hours of 4 p.m. and 10 p.m. These are weather bands, so don't lull yourself into thinking that you can go out because it's clear This is a prolonged storm event, and so we're asking people to remain into their homes or wherever it is that they decide to seek refuge until a all clear is given by your local government officials. We expect that the storm will weaken to tropical storm conditions early Thursday morning around 2 a.m. I want to note, and I don't think we've said this before, but West Tallahassee area, we expect will see the greatest impacts. So if you are in the western part of Tallahassee, we do expect the greatest impacts to be highest there, with sustained winds anywhere between 58 miles per hour and slightly low of 70 miles per hour. Tornado warnings will be in effect in the Tallahassee area until 5 p.m. And again, the conditions are ripe for tornadic activity throughout